So we had done the verse number 13 and the verse number 14. We were about to start, and here Bhagwan is basically narrating his vibhutis, which he has done before. He's kind of summarizing because he's trying to sort of motivate his students who have to meditate on him. And Bhagavan is saying summarily, he puts all that he has mentioned in the chapter 8 and later on in chapter 9, 12, in different places. He talks about himself. It's not about, as I was telling, it's not about advertisement or campaigning or art campaign or anything. It's essentially sort of to remind us about our root, about the foundation on which all these very colorful realities play out in front of us, and we try to participate in them. No problem with it. So far, we stay connected with the root of all this, which is that foundational truth in which all of us are united. And the divine and the so-called material, and the divine, the material, and the emotional, the spiritual, everything has just one foundation. And that's the supramental thing, as Sri Aurobindo keeps talking. Of course, he has a different way to interpret it. Here he's saying that I am that particular person who is in everything. And this is very reassuring. He's saying that I'm the person who is holding you. I enter into earth, Gam Avishya. I enter into earth and I'm holding this earth together. So I'm sort of this Titi Karaka. And then what? Dharayami Aham Ojasa, with my that gravitational force, my Maya Sakti. Pushnami Chausadhi Sarva. And I'm sort of the, all these crops that you have for your food. And I'm the one who's sort of making these crops possible. And then you drink water, soma bhutvara satmakaha. I also provide you all the fluids which are responsible and necessary for your sustenance. So I'm giving you food, water, shelter. That's for your prana dharana. And because he's saying that Mamaivangshu, what to look at that Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. We are the Jivas and we are part of that divine reality called Ishvara, and therefore Bhagavan provides for us everything that we have. And then when we have taken the food and the water, he also is part of this physical system. He ensures that whatever we have consumed is digested, and that's what he mentions. Aham Vaishwanaro. Vaishwanar is the name of that Jataragni, which is inside us. Bhutva praninam dehamasritaha. And he sort of is speaking in an inverted language so that it's easy for us to understand. He's the root of everything. He manifests everything. But in order to make it easy for us to understand, he's saying Deham Ashrita. He doesn't require anything. He has created this whole reality out of himself. Deham Ashrita. That is the Astraya. That is the foundation on which that consciousness is hiding. Pranapana Samayuktaha. Pachamyannam Chaturvidam. 4 types of food that we consume, 4 categories. He's helping us to digest it, and we had done the Sankara Bhashya. Aham eva Vaishwanaraha udarasto agnihi bhutva. I become that fire, which gives them hunger, which gives them, sometimes that is why in India, in our local languages, if a person doesn't have good appetite, the sickness or that disease or whatever you call it is called Agni Mandya. It's kind of that fire is not strong enough to sort of make him look for food, and that loss of appetite is associated with a certain physical problem. It's a kind of a disturbance in the Vata, Pitta, Kapha is for Ayurveda, and that's why they give you certain herbs to sort of reactivate your juices, your digestive juices in the body. I am Agnihi Vaishyanaro, yo I am Antaha Purusho, Yena idam Agnam Annam Pachyate. That is that Shruti Vakya he is quoting, Shrutihe Vaishwanaraha. Son, I by being that fire. These language is very confusing for the Vedanta students, because Bhagavan saying by being that, I do that, as if he's an isolated individual. He's not. As if he's taking different forms. No, these are manners of speaking, and that's why the Vedanta finds it very hard to sort of have what is called samanvaya, to ensure that all these sentences do not contradict each other in our deeper level of understanding. At a very apparent level, they will appear to be very contradictory, but actually there are no contradictions. Aham eva Vaishwanaraha Udaragni Udaraso Agni Bhutva, I am Agnir Vaishwanaro, Yo I am Antaha Purushe, Yena idam annam pachyate ityadi sritehe Vaishwanaraha san. By being that Vaishwara Agni, Praninam Pranavatam. Praninam means the people who have that life force in them. Deham ashritaha pravishtaha. By entering into the body, as if we can exist without Brahman. No, we cannot. That's how he's talking about it. Pravishtaha pranapana samayuktaha pranapanabhyam samayuktaha. With these are the vayus, pranavayu and apanavayu. Samayuktaha sanyuktaha pachami panktim karomi. He ensures that the food is kind of accepted by the biological system. We have chaturvidam, chatuh prakaram annam asanam bhojyam bhakshyam choshyam lehyam sa bhokta vaishwanaro agnir bhojyam annam somaha tad etad ubhayam agni somau sarvamiti pasyuto anna dosa lepu na bhavati. Now the last part is the Vedantic secret which Shankaracharya is bringing in. We'll reflect on it. But first, let's look at these four kinds of food that we discussed yesterday, how sort of Madhusudana will separate them into different categories, and we'll read through his language. So he says this, that Kingcha aham Ishwaraha, I am that Parameshwara, evam Vaishwanaraha. So I myself, who is the creator of this world, I don't leave anything to chance. So I take care of even the small things like digestion of your food. So I become Jatharagni Bhutva. I am Agni Vaishwanaro Yom Antaha Purushe Yena Idam Annam Pachyade. This is from Brihadaranyaka Upanishad 691. This is Sasta Adhyaya. No, it's 5th Adhyaya 591 from Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Ityadi Sruti Pratipaditaha San. Praninang Sarvesham Deham Asritu Antah Pravishta. So what is essentially saying is that is that particular thing that our individuality sort of comes into play when earlier we had discussed that this Purusha Prakriti Sanyoga happens, the Kshetragyan Sanyoga happens. That we discussed in chapter 13, and we'll do a bit of backward reference of it today when we move forward. So San Praninang Sarvesam Deham Asrita Anta Pravishtaha Pranapanabhyam Tad Uddipakabhyam. And these two vayus, because there are 5 vayus and they are responsible for different things that we have discussed earlier, and then Uddipakabhyam Sanyukataha Sankshuditaha San. Then once I become Sanyukta, then that fellow has appetite for food. Sankshuditaha San Pachami Panktim Nayami. Pranivir Yuktam Annam Chaturvidam. And these Bhuktam Annam Chaturvidam, 4 kinds of foods are consumed by us. Who are they? Bhakshyam, Bhojyam, Lehyam, Choapyam, and Choshyam Cha iti. So Lehya, Choshya, Bhojya, Bhaksha. And he's saying, Tatra Yada Dantehi Abakhandanaya Avakhandya Bhakshyate Apupadi Tadabhakshyam Charvyamiti Chodyate. Whatever is, we have to sort of, what do you call it? We have to chew it, whatever. It could be anything hard, like your dry snacks. And he's saying Apupadi, like Malpua and all. That is because these are the foods they were used to. And Madhusudana Saraswati is from southern Bengal. And therefore, he is talking about that particular sweet dish, which is very popular there in all of Eastern India, including in Uttar Pradesh. Malpua is, of course, is a transnational. It's trans-India dish on special religious functions. So he's talking about these are the things which you chew to eat. That is bhaksha. What is bhojya? He will mention. Yattu kevalam jivhaya vilodya nigiryate super sopadanadi tad bhojyam. It's like, it could be lentil soup, it could be kheer, it could be paisam or anything, which we sort of take into the mouth, but we don't have to chew it. You can imagine what are the things like pudding, custard, and all other desserts which are very soft. Perhaps you can include ice cream. It don't look solid, but it's actually melts in the mouth. So ice cream, these kinds of food. He's saying these are bhojyam. So you'd find that when in the Durga pujas, when food is offered to her, they say that okay, with a lot of things, I'm offering you bhakshyam bhojyam cha, because she's offered a lot of kheer and she's offered all kinds of dry sweet items and stuff like that. So bhakshyam and bhojyam cha. And then yattu upapadi dante, that we have done. And yad dravibhutam gudadi jivhayam nikshipya rasaswaditam nigiryate tat lehyam. So it could be like, it's like lihate. I mean, it's just like licking what it could be. So maybe, it's honey or anything else like that, like ghee, purified butter. These are the things. And there are certain other sweet dishes. Maybe I think you can have rabidi there and certain other milk made liquid, items. You can put it there. So these are lehyas. And tathasa srutihi, and then nigirite tad lehyam. And choshyam would be, I think, that one, that sugarcane, that in the rural area, and there are certain other, like you have those drumsticks, and there are a lot of other vegetables which we chew and we suck the juice in, and after that we throw it out. And those fruits and those vegetables and food items made out of that will qualify as choshyam. And then with Tathacha Srutihi, Ayam Agnir Vaishwanaro, Yo Manta Purushe, Yena Idam Annam Pachyate. So, and there is another place where this Lehyam, Bhakyam, Bhujyam, that Choshyam is not there, but they have added the word called Apyam. Apyam is whatever you drink. So, maybe things like fruit juices and tea and milk and other things will come in there. So that is how sort of he explains it. Uh, so Avishram Tyajati, okay, that is Choshyam. Tata Ikshukhandadi, Tat Choshyam iti Vedaha. Bhoktaha Yah so Agnihi Vaishvanaro Yad Bhojyam Arnam Sa Somaha Tad Etad Ubhayam Agnir Somau Sarvam iti Dhyayoto Anna dosha lepo na bhavati ityapi drashtavyam. So he's saying that, when you have that Vedantic vision, that everywhere is essentially that Parameshwara is that divine power who sort of is enabling everything and things are happening. One idea is to meditate on them is guneshu vartanta. The other one is that who is the niyamaka of all the things that are playing out in front of us and we are sort of participating in them. You have that Ishvara Satta Swarupa who is sort of controlling, guiding, ensuring everything, and that remains the foundation of everything. Then that Anna Lepa, end of the day, you have that. There is no dosha as such, because you may have a temptation to believe that Bhagavan is doing this. So is he becoming a karta or something, or anything happens to him? And those dualities or dualistic imaginations have to be discarded by sort of meditating on that sarvatmakata of Bhagavan, who is everywhere. Everything is happening because of his grace in that sense. And he has sort of explained it earlier. And we will have a reference to those verses of the 13th chapter when we go to the verse number 15 here. And at the verse number 15, he says that सर्वस्य चाहं हृदि सन्निविष्टो मत्तः स्मृतिर्ज्ञानमपोहनं च वेदैश्च सर्वैरहमेव वेद्यो वेदान्तकृद्वेदविदेव चाहम् सर्वस्य च अहं हृदि सन्निविष्टो. I am the one who is there, who sort of enters and is present, is sort of hiding, or is sort of has taken a position in the heart of all of you, and all of us, sarvasya, everyone. Mattah smritir jnanam apopanam cha. And then it's because of my grace that you are being able to remember. And Bhagavan, if you remember, he had explained what is Kshetra and Kshetragya. We'll revisit a couple of those verses to make sense of this particular verse. He had said that everything is Kshetra, and he's talking about the Jadavarga and everything. Then he mentions some of the subjective qualities as well. I think, Dhriti, towards still Dhriti, he says all these are Kshetras. All these emotional involvements and functions and operations of the mind, whether it's Khyama or Dharya or Raga, Dvesa, everything that you are saying, these are all Kshetra. Jadavarga, but remember that these are the Kshetra thing, Apara Prakriti. And then wait, and then he's saying that Smriti and Jnanam, whatever even you are able to remember, whatever you understand, and Apohanam, and what you forget, what you are not being able to understand, what you are not being able to hold, is also on account of me, Maktaha. So this particular sentence will definitely excite students who are not ready to study, right? Or people who are not doing very well in life. They say that, okay, it's all happening because of Bhagavan. I mean, that also can be explained as to why they think like that. We will go that way. Vedesya sarvair ahameva vedyo. Whatever you are studying, all the Vedas, and you have a lot of reference to karma kandas and mantras and all gods and goddesses that are mentioned, the Vedic deities that are worshipped. End of the day, Bhagavan says, I am that Vedya Vastu, the destination of all your Shastrartha Vichara is ultimately me. Why? Whatever you touch in this universe is a manifestation of that Ishvara Sankalpa with the help of Maya, and they have taken either subtle forms or gross forms. Therefore, at the back of everything we see, we do, we touch, we experience, we talk about is that divine presence. That's why he's saying, I am ultimately the one who remains the only thing that you should know. Earlier, even in 13th chapter, he has said, we'll revisit some of those verses. And this is Vedanta Krit. Vedanta Krit, Veda with evacha aham. And then, I'm that sort of at the end of this Vedanta Krit, I'm the one, if you look at this Upanishads and everything, whatever is discussed there, and look at all these Upanishads, at the center of all this, verily me everywhere. And Vedavid, even those ones who are studying Vedas and have a great amount of uh, very deep understanding of the sentences, the statements, and the philosophical insights of the Vedas. Again, that's on account of me. Because without me, there's nothing. Because it's me who is inside you, and whatever you're doing is on account of me. That doesn't take away our sense of responsibility. Bhagavan had mentioned that Bhagavan says that we are parts of Bhagavan. So he's essentially just elaborating on what we had just read in a couple of verses just a little earlier. So I'm just opening that 13th chapter. If you look at a few verses, so he's saying, Sarvatah Panipada Tat Sarvato Akshishiro Mukham Sarvata Shruti Malloke Sarvam Abritya Tishtati. Now, the next verse you're saying, Sarvendriya Gunabhasam Sarvendriya Vivarjitam Asaktam Sarvabhuchaiva Nirgunam Guna Bhakticha. So, he is there, and all the gunas through which we are having the experiences, he's saying, I am there everywhere present. He had said that in the verse number 15 of 13th chapter. And then, most important, he had said that Bahirantascha Bhutanam, the distinctions you draw, and whatever definitions you associate with the G word. Bahir antascha bhutanam acharam charame vacha. Whatever is moving, whatever is not moving, all that charame vacha. Sukshmatvad tad avijnayam. I'm there, but you cannot know that self. That's because it's very subtle. Durastam chantike chatat. It's very difficult. It's too far away for you to understand. However, chantika, but it's very easily understandable, realizable for the one who has opened up his heart to me. He has a Suddha Antakarana, and then he has the necessary Vairagya and Sadhana Chatushtaya. He had mentioned there. We had a long discussion on these verses. Then in the next verse, he says that avivaktam cha bhuteshu. I'm one. I'm not divided. I'm just one and only one. There's no second. Then I'm talking about innumerable human beings and animals and birds and plants and other material objects, and I'm saying that I'm present everywhere. How does that happen? So I'm divided into all these things. He says, no. He said that earlier. Avivaktam cha bhuteshu vibhaktam ivacha sthitam. I appear as if I'm divided into these categories of human beings and plants and rivers and mountains. And every human being has a unique subjectivity. I'm within him, but I'm just one thing. It's like you have millions of water bubbles appearing at a particular point in a river during a flooding time, but they're all water. But then they appear as millions of water bubbles. Same way. And then he's saying, Vivaktam Sasthitam Bhuta Bhartri Cha Tat Yeyam Rasishnu Prahavishnu Cha. And that's what I'm saying. This is the most Tad Giyam Rasishnu Prahavishnu Cha Jyotisam Apita Jyoti. And that is what we also studied in the 15th chapter. The light of all the lights that you see, which illuminate you, that inner light which enable all luminous objects. Wherever you release the splendor of the moon or the sun or anything, behind their splendor, it's me, my grace. That's what he had mentioned. And jnanam gyam jnanagamyam hridi sarvasya vishtitam. So he had already mentioned that in the verse number 17 in the 15th chapter, and we have discussed that at a length. And he's sort of repeating it here, but this is not a surprise because he has already, and we had a lot of commentaries that we had discussed that Bhagavan is saying that I'm just one. I appear as if I'm kind of split into millions of human beings. I'm hiding in all of you. Whatever is happening to you, it's me who is doing it. But remember, the results Bhagavan has said that you will have to suffer. I am not a karta, I'm not doing anything. And why? Because he udasina vadasina, I'm not doing anything. Then how things are happening? He's saying because of avidya and our papa punya, jiva's papa punya. Then why you are saying you are there? Because this anything on earth, anything in this cosmos cannot exist outside of me. Because Bhagavan is only one, he's sarva vyapaka, he's everywhere. Whatever is happening is kind of happening against that undefinable, nameless, formless reality called the Brahman. Then why talk about it? It's completely wastage of time. No, because that remains the referent point. Once we are aware of it, everything makes sense. It is like a constant. In physics, we studied, there is this constant, and we just give it a certain value, then the equations become doable. I mean, you can deal with it. Similarly, the equation of life is very difficult to resolve only if you have that constant, the undefined, nameless, formless constant, that Bhagavan that remains, that Brahman. Once it comes in, all of the equations are kind of easy to work out. They make sense. Otherwise, they don't. That's what Advaita Vedanta is trying to, drive home to us. Then look at how Sankara sort of will not, because we have discussed this at length since chapter 13, and that was very deeply philosophical chapter. This is kind of a rehash of what we have already studied and what we have already discussed here. He's kind of summarizing it, repeating what he has already said earlier. Kincha sarveti sarvasya pranijatasya aham atma. Here, Atma doesn't mean I'm his mind or body or anything. He's saying that that sheer presence of truth and reality, which pervades all, I'm that Atma in all of them. San Hridi Buddho. His Hrida here is Buddho in his intellect. San Nivishto Ato Mattaha, and from me, from these Mattaha Atmanaha Sarva Praninam Smritir Jnanam Tad Opohanam Cha. So their ability to remember anything, their ability to understand anything, and also the loss of memory and loss of knowledge, kind of it's with my grace, of course, whatever you call it. But my grace is on account of your punya, and my curse is on account of your papas. I don't do anything which is illogical. It's like you have a certain instrument, and I mean, the good example would be that there is a grand piano is sitting in a particular hall, and then you have maybe 20, 25 pianists who enter that room, and they all of them go to that piano and they play that a certain tune, but each rendition is going to sound differently. That's not because this piano is partition or partial to anyone, or the piano is kind of is misbehaving with a certain musician. It's because the experience and the skill sets that these pianists have vary from each other. So, based on their own understanding, the guy who hits a lot of runs and sixes and fours, and the guy who gets out for a duck are essentially using the same bat, and they are ruled by same set of rules. So the divine principle, the rules of the game are not being modified for anyone, but they appear as if they're favorable to us when we have loads of good karmas with us, and they appear unfavorable when we do not have enough good karmas. We do not have enough positive attitude or enough opening to the divine principle. That way, we can make sense of it. So, so there is this beautiful sentence where a lot of New Age management coaches use it, that when you have a very good sankalpa, you have a bright, nice idea, the whole universe conspires to make it happen. And that's spiritually true, because what Bhagavan is saying here, that I am within you and everything happens because of me. So if you do anything being aware of me with a complete surrender to me and without any falasanga, without any craving for results thereof, and you do your work, it's going to happen. Why? Because you have withdrawn yourself, your agency as karta or bhokta. So what remains there? The divine principle, the divine grace. So obviously the result is going to be better, but then it's very difficult to accept with a very active, rational mind. These things are not so easy to accept. But Bhagavan says it, he makes it very clear. Yesam punya karminam cha punya karman urodhena jnana smriti bhavatah tatha. Now it's because of their enormous amount of good karmas in the past. He's saying punya karmas, that some people have an extremely sharp memory or extremely sharp they are. Bhavatah tatha papa karminam, because there are certain people who have loads of negative activities and negative attitude, and therefore papa karmanurodhena anurupena. So according to the amount of negative work they have indulged in, smriti jnana or apohanam, they just sort of lose. So what happens is the trick he's employing to tell us to open our hearts to him is like this. So it's imagine that you are making an investment decision, or maybe we are going to just we are driving, we are going to go somewhere. If we are spiritually inclined, or we are open to this possibility, we are aware of this very principle, we are collected. We are collected inside means that we are free from distractions and we are aware of that divine presence. We have a sense of tranquility in us. What Bhagavan is hinting here is that in such kind of a situation, most likely we will remember the right thing and will take the right decision. It happens in all of our lives. When we are stressful, and that is a papa karma, thinking about all kinds of things. When we are stressful, we generally don't manage to remember things well, and generally we fail to take the most rational decision, even though we are the master of our choices. Rational choice theory is good. There's not a problem. We are the masters of our universe. We would like to take the decision which best favors us, but then at that particular moment of time, our mind tells us or drives us to go in a wrong direction at a particular moment. And Bhagavan says that because of punya karma, some people are able to remember the right thing and take the right decision. Others, unknowingly, even though they want to help themselves, they unknowingly cause losses to themselves because they cannot remember the right thing. That might appear to be very helpful in the short run, but actually that will be going against it. And there's another hint that much of our ability to be insightful and stuff like that. But I don't think this particular thing will apply to IQ and stuff like that. I mean, if you want to go that way, that's fine. But it's not about why, say, Steve Jobs was very sharp, or these days Elon Musk, or one of those tech-savvy business leaders, or extremely intelligent people, or Einstein, or Schrodinger, or Rivoli, or one of those great physicists who are speaking these days. Everybody wants to listen to them. This because of Purva Papa or Punya, we want to bring in that angle. I don't think that's wrong, but perhaps what is hinted here is that overall, if you look at the long term interest of a person, he may not be intellectually the sharpest on earth, but he may be actually taking decisions which are in his own long term interest, which gives him a sense of happiness and illumination and self contentment or realization, as so to say. Vedesya sarvam sarvehi ahameva paramatma vedyo. So you may have a mention of lot of deities and mantras and rituals and stuff like that. But don't forget, sarvam devam prati namaskaram keshavam prati gachati. Because why? He is the, preraka of everybody. He's the boss. So whatever you give to any guard or any staff in a particular business or corporation or anything, as per their ground rules, that will all be reported in their gift collection counter. They have to deposit all that. And then, of course, in good corporates, those items are again auctioned on Christmas or Diwali or whatever, and anybody can buy them back. But you cannot take gift from outsiders because of your own ethics and corporate ethics, whatever ethical behavior code that you have. Vedesya sarve aham eva paramatma vedyo veditabhyo. So when Bhagavan is said, he's jnana, he's jnana, and he's jnana gamya. He's the only thing to know. He is verily knowledge, and he's the object of knowledge. He's the knowledge, and he's the only thing to know. He had mentioned that earlier in chapter 13. Vedanta Krit, Vedanta Artha Sampradaya Krit Ityartha. I mean, this is how Sankaracharya is interpreting it. So Vedanta Krit, Vedanta Artha Sampradaya Krit Ityartha. So all that, I'm actually the author in a way, in an indirect way. Whatever is being written by others, the real source of inspiration is me. Veda vid, Vedartha vid eva cha aham. That is how it's very straightforward. If there is anything interesting, let's look at Madhusudana Saraswati. Kingcha Sarvasya Brahmadi Stavarantasya. So starting with Brahma, Brahmadi Stamba Paryantam, the blade of grass, so Stavara, the Jadavarga. Stavarantasya Pranijatasya Ahamatma San Hridi Buddhu Sannivishtaha. Same thing he's mentioning. Sa eva iha pravishtaha iti srutehe. This is from Brihad Aranyaka 146. Sa esa iha pravishtaha. That Atma is verily present here, has entered here. Iti shrutehe. Anena jivena atmana anupravishya nama rupe vyakaravani. This is a very, very famous statement from the Chandogya Upanishad 6.3.2. What he's trying to say is that this whole Srishti Kriya has happened, and he sort of starts that the names and forms have happened, and that particular Sankalpa, that Ishvara, his presence is very responsible that we have this Jiva, and these names and forms, everything that emerges. At the end of the day, it's all happening. He is the Sarvaniyamaka, he's the Nimitta Karana of everything. And he's mentioning that he's entering. No, he doesn't. He has his Maya Sakti, through which everything happens. Where he's just doing Sankalpa Matra, nothing else. He doesn't get involved in anything. Not fond of it. And he's saying, Ato matta atmana eva hetuho, is because of me. I am the causal principle out of which pranijatasya yathanurupam smritihi etat janamani purvanubhutartha visaya vrittir yogi namcha. So he's mentioning that some people remember, they have good memory, they can remember whatever has happened to them in their childhood in this life, but in certain cases there are people who are, or at least they claim to remember things that have happened in their previous lives. We have certain instances about Buddha who remembered several of his previous births, and Occasionally, we have cases where people remember their past birth, and we have a few experts in psychology working on it. And so, Anena Jivin, yeah, Yathanurupam Srimati Eta Janmani, in this life or even previous in case of Yogina. Yoginam cha Janmantara Anubhutartha Vishayapi, and they can remember certain experiences of their previous births. Tatha matta eva jnanam vishayendriya sanyogajam bhavati. So, what is interesting is saying that, look, out of this Brahman, through Maya Sakti, you have Buddhi or Mahat, out of which Ahankara, and then the Tanmatras, right? And out of the Tanmatras, you have the Jnanendriyas and Karmendriyas, Panchabhutas, Manas. That's how the whole thing pans out, expands. Now, the Indriyas are a modification of Maya. That is the Upadana Karana. Who is the Nimitta Karana? Purusha, Brahman. So, and the Panchabhutas, who is the Nimitta Karana? Brahman. Upadana Karana, Maya. It is sort of flowing down. What is connecting with what? I am looking at the computer screen, right? So I have the eyes, this Jnanendriya, cause of what? Maya, caused by Maya. Connecting with the computer, Bhuta Vastu. So it's Prithvi, maybe, and there is some Teja in it, some because it has a color, it has Rupa. All that traceable to Maya. What is that? That is actually an aspect of the Brahman. So this Indriya and the Vishaya Sanyoga, which is happening, it is perverted by what? The Nimitta Karana and Upadana Karana. The Karana is always present in the Karya. The cause is always present in the effect. So Bhagavan is saying, look here, you are not independent. Does it mean there is no free will? No, there is a lot of free will. This understanding gives us a great deal of free will because we understand how things are working out, and Bhagavan has explained to us how at a micro level these three gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas, work out things for us, and we become victims of it. We are not aware of it. We become master of it if we understand it. So he's saying, please be gunatita. So if you know that there are a few wild animals who have gone on a picnic, but there are certain warning signs that at night there'll be wild animals coming around, so don't get out of your house. You can have a very good sleep, stay safe, and you can enjoy that eco retreat, but you'll not hurt yourself. So there is this beautiful statement by Francis Bacon. He's saying that by understanding rules of nature, we are not breaking rules of nature, but we have freedom. So we know that there is something called gravitational force. So obviously you don't jump out of the window if you are on a higher floor because you're going to fall. You're going to hurt yourself. But gravitational, the rule about gravitation, that we are not flouting. We cannot. But doesn't mean we have no freedom. But that is a wrong way to think about these. All these secrets and insights are given in Bhagavad Gita. People end up saying Bhagavan is doing everything, we do nothing. No, there's a lot of freedom. In fact, there is greater freedom because of greater understanding of the way things are working out. But that's what Bhagavan is mentioning here. Ato matta atman eva hetuho pranijatasya dhanurupam, that we did. Tatha matta eva jnanam vishendriya sanyogajam bhavati. Even whatever we understand, whatever knowledge we have, everything in that divine thing is present in all of it. Yoginam cha desakala vikrikrishta vishayam api evam. And then we have Vishaya Sanyoga. There's something called Laukika Pratyaksha and Alaukika Pratyaksha. So I am looking at something, I'm reading a book and I know what's there. But in yogic pratyaksha, which is kind of accepted by sastras in India, they sort of accept that the physical barriers the yogic insight can penetrate. So sitting here, people can actually know what's happening kilometers away, and we have certain instances where these things have been mentioned. You had a character again, he was a great Bengali tantric in Banaras, Vishuddhanandi. A lot of recorded documentary evidence about his few yogic powers. There are a lot of mention of this, and we have at many places come across certain things in the past. But whether we can verify it, we have some understanding as to how to sort of engineer it and develop it in us. I don't know whether we have advanced, that much. It's more sporadic, more anecdotal. We have a choice of accepting or rejecting it, but that is what he's just mentioning, that yogis can have insights which is not kind of obstructed by physical distance or any barriers which is sort of preventing normal people from seeing something which is away or hearing something which is away. काम क्रोध शोकादि व्याकुल चेतसाम अपोहनम च स्मृति ज्ञानयोर अपयाश्च मत्त एव भवति. And then there are people who are very stressful. They're in a very desperate condition because of either desire. So maybe a person has to go to a hospital to attend to a patient, but then he's watching a film and he loves that film and he forgets it. He might miss a flight. You could be watching your phone and you are very much sitting in the airport lounge, and you're supposed to pick up your flight, but it's a silent zone and you miss your flight. I mean, it can happen to any of us. It has happened to me once. So, and then kama krodha, krodha is you're kind of angry, you are blind, so you don't know what's happening. Shoka, you are kind of overcome by some pain, some loss, it could be, you're mourning or there's a bad situation, you're depressed. Vyakula chetasam, and therefore you're kind of depressed or restless, or chetasam apohanam, that loss of memory, loss of understanding. Just smriti jnana, your apayasya, and then you have that loss of understanding and memory. Matta eva bhavati. That means I am also there in these distractions. Why? He's all of these. You have to logically fit into the philosophical system that we have dealt with. Are they outside of the Trigunatmika process? No. The stress is what? Negative rajas, isn't it? And then you are kind of blinded or overpowered by depression. What is that? Tamasic. So he's essentially saying that if there is an overload of tamasic and rajasic energies in a person, then the markers are explained in chapter 14. What is mudhata, anarambha? He'll not be able to aprabritti, alasya, pramada, all these things will happen. And then a lot of rajas, then obviously stressful, raga, dvesha, lobha, spriha, all that he has explained. Because of that, these intense psychological preoccupations do not enable the mind to have knowledge. Why? Because jnana and sukha is a marker of what? Sattva. The mind is more inclined to understand, can understand better when it's in a state of harmony or equilibrium, which is described as sattva. And sukha, it doesn't like stress. It doesn't enjoy a big crowded party or whatever party that be. It'll not, maybe it'll not be very fond of very loud, hard rock. No, maybe it'll listen to some sweet pop songs or maybe guitar or the soothing piano music or violin. He'll pick up something sattvic for himself. So because these things which we see as negative are very much within the purview of how the three gunas work. These three gunas are aspects of Prakriti or Maya, and Maya is Ishvara Sakti. Bhagavan has already told us that once I become Ishvara and Maya unleashes this game, you have a choice. You want to swim, you want to drown. Choice is yours. Because the waters have been unleashed. You are at a particular place. Whether you want to, don't get into it. Stay off, learn to swim, get drowned. Choice is yours. You can't just relax anymore because this whole game is going to go on. So that's why Bhagavan has made us clear. It's not that he's trying to harm us or anything, or he's saying that I'm like a villain and I sort of steal your understanding or prevent you from remembering very important in your life. He's not saying that. He's saying that these things happens because of the rules and regulations set by the Prakriti, the way this whole Srishti is going on. You want to put yourself in a beneficial situation, understand the rules, and save yourself and take care of yourself. And if you remember me, then you can fight Maya much better. If you fight with Maya, you might get drowned because he has mentioned that. Mama Maya Duratya. Evam Swiya Jiva Rupatam Uktva Now he's going to talk about the Brahma Rupata. He's talking about how the Jiva Rupata appears. Brahma Rupatam aha Vedesha. Now the Jiva Rupa, all the games and deficiencies just discussed, he's saying in the Vedya that Vedya Padartha is also me. That is his Brahma Rupa. The Vedesha Sarve Indriya Sarva Indradi Devata Prakasekai Prakasakair api aham eva Vedya. You may have these mantras for Agni and Vayu and Indra and all that and Surya and stuff like that. End of the day, I am the boss. Why? Sarvatmatvad. I am the Atma of all Atmas. I am the self of all selves. And therefore, these gods and goddesses you are worshipping ultimately are worshipping me without knowing. Indram Mitram Varunam Agnir Ahu Atho Dibhyah Sa Sapurna. chapter 16, and that is relatively a very easy. Again, this three kinds of gunas and how they sort of play out, and that we'll discuss. So tomorrow we'll after within next 2 days we'll wind up this chapter. So I'll stop here. Any questions you can ask.